Hey everyone, today we're going to look at how to graph data in sheets. This is an important skill in environmental science. We're going to use it all year long in all the data that we look at.
So we're going to start off looking at our data in environmental science assignment. One of our goals for you guys at the end of this assignment is to be able to create graphs to communicate data to other people and to help facilitate decision making. So we're going to walk through a couple of examples, so in a series of videos.
So in order to follow along, I'm going to ask you to open up the link that I have shared with this source data. It's going to be very helpful for you to actually do the graphs as I show you how to do the graphs. Feel free to pause the video when needed.
Welcome to our video on pie graphs. So we are gonna look at, so the first thing we want to consider is our data and what variables are included in our data set. So we are gonna be looking at this natural disaster event data. And just to kind of look through it really quickly, we can see that this is some sort of all natural disasters here. I just highlighted the top, that first row there, and I turned on the filter so that I can sort things. I really like sorting things in sheets. So I can sort it, and you can see down here that I could look at just droughts or just earthquakes or extreme temperature, extreme weather, flood, any of those kinds of things down here. So in this case, if I wanted to maybe ask the question of like, what percentage of all natural disasters are droughts? Or what type of natural disaster is there a higher percentage of out of the whole records? Then I could definitely answer that with these data sets, and I would just need these types of natural disasters over here, this entity. But I don't want everything all lumped together. I just want the individual types of natural disasters. So I'm going to uncheck natural disasters and click OK. And then if I want everything all together for the entire data set, then I don't need the years at all. So I just need this column A and column C. So to highlight those two columns, you click on the first column that you want on the letter at the top, and then to highlight the next column, you hold down the Command key if you're using a Mac, or the Control key if you're using a PC, and click the next column that you want highlighted. And then we're going to insert a chart. So we're going to go maybe insert chart here at the little icon, or up here, insert chart. Either one works, whatever you want to do. And Google thinks we should make a line graph, but that's not going to help us answer our question. Our question was like, what percentage of each natural disaster that's occurring over this whole like 120-year period. And so I have types of natural disasters and I have numbers of occurrences. So I want to look at the composition of my data set. So I want to look at like what percentage is droughts, what percentage is floods, what percentage is tornadoes, whatever. And that's going to be a static thing. We're not looking at it changing over time. Because remember, we were just going to lump everything together for the 120 years. And I just wanted to know like what was the breakdown of percentages of each type of natural disaster. So that lends itself very nicely to a pie chart. So a simple share of the total, so a simple percentage of the total. So that's going to help us. So this is how this little chart suggester can help us pick our type of graph there. So we're going to pick chart type. I said I wanted to make a pie chart. You could go like this, or you could make a fancy like 3D pie chart. Whatever you want, it's up to you. And again, my question was like over our entire data set, over all the years, what natural disaster is the largest percent of natural disasters. So that means I need to lump everything for all the years together. So I want to click this aggregate option. So now I have all of these for all of the years. So my title isn't very descriptive, and it doesn't help people kind of see the answer to my question that I asked. So I want to change my title for my graph. So I'm going to come over here to Chart Axis and Titles, and I want to change my chart title. I don't have a subtitle for it. So I want to look at that's pretty descriptive, I think. Natural disaster occurrence from 1900 to 2019. It's pretty good. All right, and so then when I'm done with this, I will need to put it into the Google Doc as well as the class slides, and so I'll do that by going to Copy Chart from these three dots up here in the top right corner, and then I will paste that down here using my Command V. All right, so there we have our graph. Thank you guys for watching, and go check out the other graphing videos.
So in order to follow along, I'm going to ask you to open up the link that I have shared with this source data. It's going to be very helpful for you to actually do the graphs as I show you how to do the graphs. Feel free to pause the video when needed. Another sort of outcome from natural disasters, one is global deaths, the other thing is economic impacts. We all know that when there is a hurricane or a flood or a drought or a landslide, it's going to have some kind of an economic impact. So that's something we're also interested in. So I've chosen to pull a particular year from the data to look at the effects of each type of natural disaster on the economy. And so if you take a look, my type of disaster is reported. So we're looking at drought, earthquake, extreme temperature, extreme weather, floods, landslides, wildfires, okay? And you'll notice that our values here are reported in US dollars. And of course, they're quite large sums. And at the bottom, I have this all natural disasters. So I'm going to highlight this just so that we can distinguish between these data sets. So I'm just going to highlight that right here. It's orange. Okay. So one of the nice ways to display data like this is to use a pie chart. And the reason I'm going to use a pie chart here is that this will allow me to look at the economic cost as a fraction of the total cost. Meaning, if I'm spending 1.32 times 10 to the 11 dollars, how much of that is going to each of these different types of disasters? So in order to do that, I am going to have to find a percentage or a fraction of each of these types of disasters relative to the total cost. So I'm going to do that here in my column. So I'm going to call this percentage of total, for lack of a better term. You might have a better title for that. And then I'm going to do my calculation. So one of the really powerful things, and I'm going to highlight, make this a little bigger for you, in Sheets. Those of you that had me for chemistry, I know you did this. So this is a bit of a refresher. We can use Sheets as a calculator. So we're going to hit the equal sign here, right? And if I'm finding a percentage of the total, I'm going to take my dollars due to drought, and I'm going to divide it by my total. So I'm highlighting my total value down here, okay? And then I'm going to hit enter. And I get a percentage. Now, I happened to set up this column so that it would report a percentage. The way that I did that is I highlighted the column. I went to Format, Number, and I highlighted percent. Okay, and that means that my number will be reported out automatically as a percentage. Now, many of you know that I can take this box and I can cut and paste my formulas simply by scrolling down with the box. So let's do that and see what happens. Uh-oh, Sheets is not happy with me. So if you notice, I have this hashtag divided by 0, and they're saying you can't do that mathematically, and they're absolutely right. So one of the problems with the formula that I have is that I am not designating my value down here, so my dollar amount for all natural disasters, as a constant. So what this is trying to do is it's trying to cut and paste C2 to C9, C3 to C10, C4 to C11, etc. So the way that I work around that is I play with my formula. So I go to the formula box that I have over here, and I put a dollar sign in front of each one, the C and the 9. And what that tells Sheets is that this is a constant. And then I hit enter. And now, watch what happens when I try to populate my cells. There we go. It calculates my percentages. So this, in my opinion, is a more meaningful way to show the data rather than looking at the raw numbers. In order to make sure I'm right, because I want to make sure that, again, I've done my math correctly, I'm just going to sum up the data, and it should be 100% if, in fact, I did the calculations correctly using Sheets. And look at that. Awesome. It's 100%. So that works. All right. So now let's graph our data. So just like in the previous examples, I'm going to highlight all of this information, and I'm going to insert a chart. And then we're going to sort of edit the chart from there. Woo, okay. So I got a column chart. I don't like that. So up here, I'm going to make that into a pie graph. And right away, what you should see is that these numbers are not correct, right? So I have wildfire 14.3, landslide 14.3. Well, that's not right, because we know that those are not the percentages. So I'm going to have to make sure that Sheets is in fact graphing the right stuff. I'm going to just shrink that little graph. All right, so here's what I have to do. My label is type of disaster, and that's good. That's what I want. But my value right now is the year, and the years are all the same. So it's just taking those years and dividing them by the total number, and that's why we have the same percentages. So I'm going to edit that. And I'm going to select my data range, and my data range is right here. It's my percentages. I'm going to hit OK. There we go. So, isn't that interesting? So right away, we can see that the natural disasters that had the biggest economic impact were extreme weather and drought in 2010, globally. So again, kind of interesting, quick visual. Remember that when we graph data, it's order for us to understand it, but it's also in order for our audience to understand it. So I want to quickly share my findings with a group that maybe doesn't know anything about my experiment yet. And so this is a really good way to do it.